area. We also have a second mission, which is education. And this is part of that effort to make sure that the people in our community have an opportunity to know what's really going on. So this is an opportunity to meet in person with the leaders in our community, ask them questions directly. And when we get, if you hold your questions, when we get to the end, we'll have microphones to pass around the audience. So your question will be heard by everybody. Let's see. So as it says, we seek to enhance and add enjoyment to the lives of seniors in the community, provide educational opportunities with a focus on healthy living habits, and provide access to facilities that help seniors create their own healthy and fulfilling lives. Okay. The mayor is going to introduce key people from throughout the community. And we will also recognize folks in the audience that perhaps take part in commissions and boards and so forth in our community. Well, when we get to the end of the presentations, I encourage everybody to adjourn to the lobby. There will be refreshments there, some light food and some beverages. And it's an opportunity to talk one-on-one with each of these people. I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. Remember what your burning question is and be prepared to ask it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Scotts Valley, Randy Johnson. Randy?
Thanks, Dave. And thanks everybody, the Senior Life Association and all of you showing up on a Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Just want to introduce, I don't think there's a lot of city council people here. We could only allow 2 to show up, including myself. I think Donna Lynn is in the audience, council member. Right. All right, I think. I think that's good. So, my name is Randy Johnson. I've been on the city council for a number of years, 28 actually. I've been the mayor actually 8 times. I did a little typo there, but it's been a while. Thank you. Molly LaGoe, our city manager, has been here since January 2022. She will be following my presentation. I just wanted to say that, just starting off, that the state of the city of Scotts Valley is good. You know, I first took the oath of office back in 1996, which is a long time ago, obviously. As a city councilman, I was eager to make sure that the work that the promises I had made, that I was eager to make sure that I followed up on those promises. And what were some of those promises? Well, they're kind of the same today as they were back in 1996, aren't they? Part of it was infrastructure. Redoing Scotts Valley Drive was a big deal. It happened. Maintaining a level of excellence in the police department. I think we've done that. Making sure that our park system and recreational system was intact. That's really happened. Fiscal integrity, establishing a commitment to our very, very loyal people who work and employees who work at the city of Scotts Valley. Also keep a small town feeling in our city, which is important, I think, to most of you. To fix Granite Creek interchange at Scotts Valley Drive. No, that wasn't one of them, okay, because that's impossible. could never do it. So as I mentioned, the city of Scotts Valley is the state of the city of Scotts Valley is good, but it's also challenging. It's also unpredictable. It's resilient, right? I mean, think about one of the most important things in our lives is resiliency. We teach it to our kids. We have to do it ourselves each and every week, probably every day. It's evolving. It's unfinished. I think we know this, but it's also forward thinking and promising. And so what I want to do today is go through some of the slides that we talk about in terms of our goals that we're trying to achieve. Pursue revenue is needed to support a thriving city. We need money to do the things that support what you need, okay, to meet the service demands that you are all expecting. We want to improve the efficiency of the day-to-day operations. That's happening on kind of a subterranean level. Scotts Valley right now is a little bit like an iceberg, okay? Lots happening below the surface. And a lot of that has to do with our city manager who has come in the last 3.5 years and implemented many, many, many changes that increase the efficiency of our city that go unseen, but at the same time will be reflected in cost savings and making sure that our employees work as efficiently as they possibly can. We want to prepare the town center for development. That is happening as we speak. More progress has been done on that in the last 2 years than in the last 26. And by the way, in 1996, it was one of my promises. So that's how things happen. A little slow around here. Upgrade the wastewater treatment plant. That isn't, on the minds of a lot of people until you flush, right? Okay, but it's an important thing, and we are right in the middle of making sure that that is up to date. Improving roadway conditions. Probably complaints happen there as much as anywhere, right? As far as traffic, we hear it all the time, whether it's at the schools, here, on. How many have had a problem on Mount Herman Road with PG&E making it all one lane in the last 6 weeks? It's been terrible, right? Advance transportation planning on Scotts Valley Drive and Mount Herman Road. Those are 2 big roads, right? I think 20,000 people drive on Scotts Valley Drive in a day, probably close to, help me, 50 to 75,000, at least 50,000 or more on Mount Herman, lots coming from our friends in San Lorenzo Valley. We want to foster relationships and civic engagement. I think we've done a pretty good job of that, making sure that our website is up to date, that we communicate in a good way to our citizens. It's always hard to get the word out. Today, probably a pretty good example, right? That how did you find out about this? A lot of it had to do with Dave and the Senior Life Communications, but we always have to do a better job in terms of communicating with our citizens. We also want to invest in Scotts Valley's brand, okay? So we're extremely interested in what people think about our city. And so we want to project what that city is going to be like to the outside world. So what have we done in the last, we haven't been sitting on our hands, right? We have a general plan. Everybody needs a plan. It's mandated by the state. A housing element. A housing element means that the state of California has been a little bit cranky in the last few years, right? And they mandated among not only us, but all cities in California, 1,220 new homes. Let that number sink in a little bit because they're coming. And no matter what we as a council, the local control has been a little bit compromised. But at the same time, we're going to do what we've been asked or ordered to do, but in the best way that we possibly can. That's our commitment to you. The town center, as I mentioned before, the town center is making great progress. We have a bid, and it's around 15 acres. We own around 7 or 8, something like that. And Santa Cruz owns the other 7. And we're now in a real estate deal, if you will, to buy that. It's going through a process as we speak. There's been a Citizens Academy where people get to know a little bit about how our city works. The technology I alluded to before, we are doing our level best to become very, very technologically advanced so we can communicate, but also so we can be more efficient as a city. Full staffing, that may not sound like much, but it's extremely important, especially when we talk about the police department, making sure we have enough police to protect our city. I think Captain Rutherford will talk a little bit about that later. Chilton Pool, again, the little pool that could, right? I mean, people make fun of our little pool, but it doesn't cost us an arm and a leg. We kind of break even on it. And it was out of commission for about a year. Now it's fully servicing mostly our young people out there. Parks Master Plan, we just completed that. Nice, really exciting things happening there for our parks. And by the way, when I first came here, there was no Sky Park. There was no Sky Park building. So we're proud of some of the progress that we've done. When you look out and see what's happening on a Saturday afternoon when kids are playing soccer. Little League field turf. Their infield is turf. They love it. No more bad hops happening there. The tot lot at Sky Park. Give yourself if you're walking your dog or whatever at Sky Park, stop and look at that for a second and see what it's like. It's a beautiful little place. We have community video projects on our website. A business license tax is in the works. That'll be coming up on your November ballot. It'll affect and modernize. The business license tax hasn't been modernized and updated since 1992. And the large businesses will pay more than their fair share. 2.6 million in grant funding. Cities like Scotts Valley need grants, okay, from the state, from the feds, and we do a fabulous job. Their staff does a fabulous job in reaching out, bird dogging those grant opportunities to make sure we get as much as we possibly can. Wildfire preparedness insurance event right here where you're sitting. We had an event because people couldn't afford insurance, what we were going to do, and we had a whole massive number of people from insurance executives to fire people, trying to allay some of the fears that were out there. So the town center, what's new? We did environmental cleanup, community outreach. We updated our design. If you've been around at some of our events, the design has been out there for people to kind of look at, talk about, ask questions, and kind of vote on with those little dots. Our housing element, big deal, because if you don't have a housing element with the state, talk about cranky, okay? They will really penalize you, and our staff did a fabulous job in getting that out on time. A retail capacity, we have to know how much retail is out there and available. We have our experts that give us advice. Everybody has an opinion about what stores they want to see in a town center. However, there's economic reality associated with that, what works, what pencils out, what doesn't, and only so much retail can be absorbed. We have a development partner selection process coming up in a few, probably 3 or 4 months in 2025. This will give opportunity for developers to bid on the project. And here we go, resurfacing and sidewalks, infrastructure, always important, especially those people that drive that road. Our tot lot, look how beautiful the tot lot is. I'm especially proud of the Vine Hill Elementary School childcare playground, because that shows 2 things. Number one, it's being used by numerous kids, right? Recess and whatever, but it also shows that we work very, very well with our school district and help them and they help us. We have a very good relationship there. Scotts Valley Drive, it looks terrible, okay? Last night we had a 3-hour meeting a little bit on the future of Scotts Valley Drive. We're going to implement some of what happened last night, consensus that we're going to widen some of the bike lanes, right? To make it safer, maybe get rid of the median, a little bit more narrow, make it safer. But we're going to, and I promise you, we're going to re-asphalt that thing, resurface it, okay? Thank you. And the fields, we're working on it. We'll just say that, okay? Every year there's a little bit of, it could be drought, it could be the sprinklers break. But we're dedicated to make sure that is improved, and it's been given a lot of thought. I'm almost coming done here. Measure X is, this is a fact sheet. You can't read a whole lot, but like I said, it's implemented, was implemented in 92. Now we're going to update it. It is going to come to a vote for the people here, both our citizens. We think it's equitable and fair. That's one of the most important things. As you can see, how is it calculated, and how was it calculated? It used to be by employee. Now it's going to be by how much gross income a business might have. And with that, that was pretty fast, and I realize that. But you know, there's a lot happening in our city, and I'm proud of the way that things have been going. You know, it's an exceptionally good city. I think the people of our community enjoy it. They have a lot of expectations. We're trying to fulfill them. And one of the people responsible for a lot of that is the next speaker, City Manager Molly LaGoe. Molly, welcome.
Thank you so much. Not as tall as Randy. All right, good evening. Thank you, Mayor Johnson. My name is Molly LaGoe. I'm the city manager here in Scotts Valley. I've been with the city for almost 3 years, and it's been quite a learning experience and a journey. I wanted to begin by introducing our executive team. Without these other 5 individuals, we would not be able to serve the community. Each of them plays a critical role as a technical expert in their area, but as well as a leader for the city organization. So I couldn't be happier with this team of individuals who help lead the city with me. And with this group, we will accomplish great things in the years to come to support the city of Scotts Valley. So today I'm going to share a very brief budget overview of the city's current budget, some of the long-term financial forecast data, as well as provide some context around the tax revenue that the city receives. Then I'll touch a bit on the housing element and what housing we're seeing coming down the pike around town. And then finally, I'll just share a few items to look out for in the years to come, or the next year to come. All right, so the city's budget includes $26 million in operating expenses on an annual basis, as well as this year we have an additional $10 million programmed for capital projects. These expenses are divided roughly into 3 categories: our salaries for our 65 staff, our services and supplies and materials, and then the third is our capital outlay program. So you can see our largest department is they provide 24/7 service divided across 4 shifts per week. Our next largest department is Public Works, with a staff that provide engineering, maintenance, wastewater, and our recreation staff are in that department. Community Development has 5 staff, and we rely heavily on contracted support for planning, building, code compliance, and affordable housing. And finally, the administration department includes our finance staff, human resources, the city clerk, city manager, and a few support staff. So we are a lean team, and every person on the team fills a critical role in serving our residents. Other budget highlights are we rely on $14 million of local tax revenue, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Other revenue sources include fees for service, grants, and other state or federal dollars that we receive. So the city's long-term financial forecast shows a structural budget deficit of around $2 million. And this is because of an array of factors, including rising costs in labor, insurance, construction materials and supplies. And since the pandemic, the city's had 3 years of surplus, but that's because we had to freeze positions. We didn't have enough staff to deliver services, and we weren't able to really deliver projects because we didn't have staff. And so we weren't able to spend the money we'd budgeted because we didn't have enough people to do the work. So that has turned around. We are now almost fully staffed. And so we do expect to spend our full budget the current year and moving forward. The city also received $2.8 million in ARPA funds during that time, which helped to contribute towards that budget surplus in the few years after COVID. As staff, we've been focused on identifying cost savings while also recognizing the need for increased revenue, as Mayor Johnson mentioned. Taxes, while no one enjoys paying them, are the lifeblood of every city. And our ability to hire excellent staff, to fix roads, to fix irrigation systems, to provide modern equipment to our police officers, all of those things depend on local tax revenue. So these three charts provide some context to the amount of local tax revenue that the city receives. So the top chart shows Scotts Valley's historic revenue level from property tax, sales tax, and transit occupancy tax, which is what you pay when you stay in a hotel or when visitors come and stay in our hotels. You can see that before the Great Recession, back when many of you recall that maybe our streets and parks were in better condition, the city's revenues was significantly higher on the property tax side. And then with the end of the redevelopment program, which the state of California took away from cities and counties in 2012, you can see how our property tax revenue dropped with no new revenue source to make up for that loss. So over about a 12-year period from 2010 to 2022, that trough that you see on that chart represents about $33 million of unrealized revenue. And what made up for that and started us back on a path to success was Measure Z that you, as voters, approved in 2020. And then the economic recovery from COVID, you can see how we've started to level out back to the revenue levels that we had 15 years ago. So each city's tax revenue pie looks different. You may already know that Scotts Valley receives only about 6% of the property taxes that you pay every year. Which makes us more dependent on other tax revenue sources like sales tax or business license tax or other options. The bottom left chart shows how we compare to other similar and nearby cities, with the blue dots representing population and the orange bars representing property tax revenue. So you can see that cities like San Anselmo and Hillsborough, while similar in population to Scotts Valley, get 10 to 20 times the amount of property tax revenue that Scotts Valley does. Then the chart on the bottom right talks about sales tax. And although Capitola, you can see, gets a little more property tax with a little less population, than they receive a lot more sales tax per capita than any other jurisdiction in Santa Cruz County. And that's based on just the businesses, the car dealerships that they have in Capitola. So that's a really quick overview of some of the context around the various local taxes that cities depend on. So you can learn more about the city's budget by going to our website, clicking on the city budget. It'll pull you into our online budget book, which is, instead of a big long PDF of charts and graphs, it's something you can interact with. It's more like a website version, which makes it easier to navigate. All right, next we're going to talk about housing. So as Mayor Johnson mentioned, our housing element requires the city to plan for 1,220 new homes over the next 8 years. As you know, the city does not build housing. We are dependent on private and nonprofit developers to actually propose projects to build new housing. The housing element plan identifies several strategies, including pipeline projects, the new town center, and rezoning in certain places across the city. So this is a map from the housing element that shows the distribution of the sites that were identified for one of those options, either a pipeline project or mixed use rezoning or residential rezoning. And so some of the projects that we're seeing coming into City Hall, we've received interest on several properties that are in various stages of whether they actually would ever come to fruition or not. So the Valley Gardens project, which you're probably all familiar with because it's been in the works for quite a while, includes 196 units And this project is expected to come to city council later this year for approvals. Right now, there's a public comment period on the environmental impact report, and people can submit comments through the city's website if you're interested in doing that. The town center, as Mayor Johnson mentioned, is being designed to accommodate 300 units, and part of that is based on state law and the Surplus Lands Act that requires us to have that number of units. The Oak Creek Park project was already approved by the city council for 52 units, but it hasn't been built because of construction costs and market forces, but maybe it will. Hopefully it will at some point. And then we've heard from affordable housing developers that are working on plans for both the Pinnacle Pass Shopping Center as well as the vacant land on La Madrona next to the Hilton, but we don't have drawings or any specifics on those projects just yet. Then on Scotts Valley Drive, there are several projects that are in various forms of moving forward. Most of these sites are identified in the housing element. You can see that they range from 11 units to 100 units, depending on the site. And most of these projects are invoking the new state laws that remove the city council's discretion to approve or deny these projects. So they are, they're moving forward based on what they can do through state law. So finally, just what to watch for in the next year or so. As Mayor Johnson mentioned, Measure X is on your November ballot. We do have some information sheets out in the lobby for more information about Measure X. We also have a website on the city's website dedicated to information about Measure X, and even a calculator where a business can type in what their grocery receipts are and see what their estimated tax might be under the new model. Mayor Johnson mentioned Scotts Valley Drive resurfacing and bike and pedestrian improvements. We'll be doing some additional community outreach based on the direction we got from council last night over this winter, and working towards a design in order to resurface that road. You heard about the town center. It's exciting that that's moving forward. We will be hosting another Citizens Academy in the spring of 2025. So I encourage you to look out for that. I know we have some Citizens Academy graduates in the audience tonight, which is wonderful. We're working on new playground equipment for the big kids at Sky Park. And we're working on resurrecting the plans out at the Al Shugart Park as were designed several years ago so that we can actually deliver that park for the community's use. So lots of things going on. And finally, I just want to take a moment to thank Mayor Johnson for his 28 years of service on the city council, from his unwavering support of our police department to his role in improving Scotts Valley Drive. The city has been fortunate to have such a steadfast leader on our council for the last 3 decades. So please join me in thanking Mayor Johnson. All right, and with that, I will turn it over to Captain Jayson Rutherford.
Hey, so I recognized a lot of friendly faces out in the crowd, and I appreciate you all coming tonight. Being in law enforcement, it's always nice to speak with friendly crowds. Believe me, beats the alternative every time. I appreciate the podium. Sometimes things get thrown at us, so it's nice to have friendly faces. I'd also like to thank Mayor Johnson. I started here in 1998, and he was in 96, so he was already on the council. We both had much darker hair back then, but yes, always been a steadfast supporter of the police department. So I'm filling in for Chief Wapple tonight, and like I said, I started here in 1998, and it's been a long journey. This is our inspection photo from last year, and as City Manager LaGoe already mentioned, when we're at full staff, we have 28. That's 20 sworn, which is our officers, all the way up to the chief position, and then we have 8 professional staff members. Unfortunately, the theme for us is a reoccurring theme for us is retention. We spend a lot of time hiring and recruiting folks, and we do our best to try to retain them. From this photo alone, again, this was September of last year, so exactly a year ago. Our annual inspection is coming up in 2 weeks. It's actually 2 weeks from today. There's 3 bodies or 3 officers in that photo that are no longer with us. I've moved on to other agencies. So it's difficult for us to, one, hire and recruit these folks because every agency is hiring and every agency is down bodies. So when you are competing against every agency in the state, you know, it takes a lot. And we try to focus our efforts on people that are already in our community, because that we found the greatest success with, because they're already here, whether they have families here, they have homes here, because that's typically the reason why people leave. It's just the general cost of living. So if we can retain those folks that are already here, it helps our ratio, our success ratio. I'm happy to report that on paper, we're at full staff. Unfortunately, again, it takes a while to get these folks out on their own. The hiring process alone takes about 6 months, and another 6 months in the academy, and another 5 months into our training program. So these are the 4 officers that we have recently hired. Officer King and Officer Welsh, those 2 are set to get out of our training program at the end of this month. So you will be seeing them out on solo patrol very shortly. And then Officer Benke and Officer Garcia are soon to follow after that at the end of October. All 4 of them are local guys. All 4 of them have families here. So we're very excited that we can hopefully have some longevity with these folks. I hear it a lot from people that I've known for a long time in the community, that they just don't recognize the officers anymore. And when I started, again, we had guys that would be here 15, 20 years, long lifers, guys that just started their career here and retired here. And that's important just for me, because I live here as well. But it's important for the community to know the officers who you're interacting with. Everybody's favorite topic. I hear this more issue from anybody from all the community than any other thing is traffic. And we've already kind of talked a lot about Scotts Valley Drive and Mount Herman. So this is just our stats from the year. Traffic stops are about the same as from the year before, about 3,000 citations, around 1,500. 50-50 odds you're going to get out of it. That's better than Vegas. I'll take those odds any day. So you got a shot. Just be nice. And then our collisions are about the same, non-injury and injury. This last year, it was unfortunate because we had 2 collisions that involved 3 fatalities. One was a double fatality. And you remember on Mount Herman Road by Lockwood area over by Heavenly Cafe. So 2 people passed away in that one. And then we had a solo vehicle collision, excuse me, that had a fatality. So that kind of skewed our numbers a little bit on it. But still, there was only 17. So that's pretty good. And then that's Officer Ben Stanley, who's our solo motor officer. For a city of our size, and again, the mayor and city manager mentioned how much we're going to be expanding in terms of housing. The way we are, our population now, we're doing pretty well in terms of actual overall reported crimes. It's down, which is great. Since COVID took a really big hit, has obviously steadily climbed since then, but now it's kind of leveled off. Our thefts are down, our arrests are down. I actually anticipate thefts to be a little bit more next year, because it seems like now the targets in, we're getting a lot more shoplift type calls for service. So I anticipate it to be a little bit higher next year, and the rest obviously will correlate with that. Calls for service are almost the same as the year prior. The thing I really like to touch on is our officer initiated activity. So that's 16, close to 17,000 officers self-initiated. That means that's what the officers are doing on top of the calls for service. So they're not just responding to calls. You get about 5,700 calls for service, and they're almost tripling that just in terms of proactive law enforcement. And that's what we really pride ourselves on, Scotts Valley. We call it like a force multiplier, because when you only have 2 or 3 guys on, but it looks like you got 10 guys on patrol, it's just because they're always out. We don't want them in the office. We want them out patrolling. We want them out doing foot patrols and contacting businesses and interacting with the community. So that's important. And I think that directly correlates with the actual overall crime being less, because people know, that's why it's nicknamed Stops Valley, or Cops Valley, because they know that don't come. If you don't live here, don't come to commit crime. Come here to visit, come here to spend money, but don't come here to commit crime. Kind of touching on a few things that we do just in the community. DARE, we're the only agency in the county that participates in DARE. We're the only agency who's done this for a number of years. It's important for us to be involved with the community, but also with the children, obviously. We're capturing the hearts and minds when they're young, letting them see us as human beings, letting them know that we are there as a resource, as a part of the community. So DARE has evolved from just a drug abuse resistance education program to now handling vaping and all the current trends, vaping and alcohol abuse, obviously, but also decision making, teaching respect, and being part of your community versus just the actual substance abuse type issues. So, but we teach it in all the 5th grade classes, Brook Knoll, Vine Hill School, and at Bateman. So all the 5th grade classes in all the schools. So it's great. The kids love it. The teachers love it. The parents love it. So it's really nice to just be involved. Where else are you going to get that face time with the kids? I mean, if you're not going to where the kids aren't going to come to us. We understand that. So we need to be where they are. We need to be interacting with them. It's a 10-week program. So we're constantly there, constantly in the classes. With youth is Junior Police Academy. We run 2 of these during the summer. We've been doing this for a number of years as well. It's a week-long program. It's 20 children each session. Physical fitness. We do some basic police type stuff to kind of introduce them to law enforcement, get them interested in law enforcement. And then on the last day, we do a community service event where we hike into Henry County and pick up a bunch of litter and just kind of show them that, hey, law enforcement is also about just being caretakers and stewards of your community as well. So the kids always love that event. It sells out. National Night Out, we just celebrated this the first part of August. This is obviously a nationwide event for law enforcement to be in the community. Again, we do a lot with juveniles, but we want to be able to actually intermingle with our community, invite them into our house now. We go to a lot of other people's houses. They don't get to come to ours very often. So they come in, do tours, get to see all of our equipment, various community groups set up booths and hand out literature and things like that. So it's a really good event. Great picture down there at the lower corner there, looking handsome as always, Mayor Johnson. Do a barbecue, and it's always well attended. 4th of July parade, always another great event. This is probably our single most, this is our biggest event from a law enforcement in Scotts Valley standpoint. It's all hands on deck. Nobody gets the day off. We're all there. So we have our entire PD on staff. And I'm sure all of you have attended the event. We start with a small parade there at Sky Park, but we're all there. We do our best to provide safety and security for the event, for the community. And it's quite a testament because we've never once, knock on wood, had one law enforcement related issue in all the years that we do. And for those of you who have been, like I'm sure most of you have, it's packed. It's absolutely packed. And for that many people to be that confined to a space in the heat of the day, not have one issue is quite telling. It's a testament both to the community members and how we conduct ourselves as community members, but then as law enforcement that we're there and we're providing that safety for the guests. We just had the Art Wine and Beer Festival there at Sky Park, and we start that with a car show on Saturday morning, but we're there throughout the weekend. For those of you who have gone to that, it's always a well-attended event as well. So just being in the community as much as we possibly can. So what are our plans coming up? So Scotts Valley PD, we're the only agency in the county that has our own standalone dispatch center. Everybody else, Watsonville, Santa Cruz PD, the Sheriff's Office, Capitol, they all run through NetCom, which is a centralized dispatch. Scotts Valley, you call 911, you get Scotts Valley Dispatch, which is great, unless sometimes on 17 you might pick up CHP's dispatch, but predominantly you get our dispatch. The beauty of that is it reduces the call time. So you call 911, our call times, our response times from call to actual arriving on scene year after year after year for emergency calls is under 3 minutes, which, you know, seconds count obviously in emergencies. So you're not having to wait for that call to be transferred to the right agency. You're calling and you're getting a dispatcher who typically lives in town, knows the area, knows exactly where, when you're saying, hey, I'm Whispering Pines in Estrella, they know exactly where that is. Or you're saying whatever business you're at, they know exactly where that is. So they're already sending officers to that location, which obviously cuts down on whatever the emergency is. For those of you that have had emergencies and have had to call 911, 2 minutes seems like 2 hours. So the faster that we can respond, the better off everything is. Like with everything, technology moves very quickly, just like with your cell phone, your laptop, whatnot. So the dispatch equipment that we have, the machines that we operate in there, the shelf life on them, they're coming up. So the plans that we have for the year is to update a lot of our equipment that we have in there, a lot of the software that we have in there that's becoming outdated, it's no longer being supported. So fortunately, we've applied for some grants through the state that we've been awarded. So now we're just waiting on bids in order to be able to replace these things, because just like everything, these things cost a lot of money. So we're trying our best to utilize grants so we're not having an fiscal impact on the city itself. But we're very happy that we have that luxury in-house, and it obviously feeds well to the community as well. The last thing, circling back to traffic, so no, again, everybody loves traffic. So we were also able to get this year, we're just awarded 2 grants from the OTS, Office of Traffic Safety. Anybody have any issues with e-bikes? I don't think nobody's heard of this, right? So we hear this all the time. This is like the newest, latest, greatest fad is the e-bikes. And so we got 2 grants. One is for equipment, and on the equipment side of the house, we're looking at additional radar equipment, some breathalyzer stuff for DUIs and DUI enforcement, as well as some collision and citation software. So that's specifically for the equipment side of the house. For the other grant, it's all for education and enforcement. So what we have planned is, we already have it set up, is that we're going to be doing presentations at each one of the schools, each school in our district, for e-bike enforcement and education, obviously letting them know what the rules of the road are. And then we have a community event that we'll be planning on a Saturday for the parents to come to be more educated on e-bikes, those of you that have them for your kids. The education and enforcement side of that also will have DUI enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, things like that. But also it includes some overtime enforcement just for officers to come out and do e-bike enforcement. So hopefully that will cut down on some of the stuff we see. It's unfortunate, you know, you see the 2, 3 kids. I saw 3 on one the other day, and none of them wearing helmets. That's just, we can't have that, because we haven't had any sort of major issues in terms of injuries yet, but it's not a when, it's, you know, not an if, it's a when. So that's what we have focusing coming up on traffic. And I think that's all I have for you guys. So I appreciate you guys' time.
Alrighty, well, good afternoon, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark Correira, and I am the fire chief for the Scotts Valley District. Talk about here in a little bit, but before I get into that, there's 2 people in the audience that I'd really like to introduce to you all, and if afterwards, if they're out there, feel free to approach them with questions. The first person is our most senior battalion chief within the organization, Jeff McNair. He's over in the corner over there. Jeff, you want to wave? Jeff is he's been with the district for 35 years. And he's responsible for our facilities. So if you've got any questions about fire stations or apparatus or even incidents we've been on, please feel free to reach out to him. And Chris Hurst, one of our board of directors in the audience. Chris, if you could just wave your hand. She's one of our elected officials. Yep. Thank you both for being here today. And I'm going to go ahead and dive into this. So I was told last year that my presentation was the best and it was their favorite. So it put a lot of pressure on me this year to try to do this. I apologize to the rest of the panel for that. But anyway, just kidding. I think this person told everybody that exact same thing, but I do hope this is somewhat entertaining for you. But anyway, the fire district is just a list of topics that I'm hoping to touch base on, some incidents we've been on, where we're going, where we've been, some really remarkable recognition that we were fortunate to receive this year, just from some of our great employees that we have with the district. And then I'll talk a little bit about where we're going as a district and also our most number one priority, which is our fire station on Urban Lane. A lot of you are probably already aware of that, our Measure S and our Measure W from last year as well. So. Anyway, the Scotts Valley Fire Protection District isn't part of the city. It's an independent taxing district. We have our own 5 board of elected officials that represent and manage the policies of our organization, as well as oversee the district. Our district goes all the way from the Santa Cruz city border, and I'll show you in a map here in a little bit, all the way north up 17 to Glenwood. We cover a fairly large area. And December of last year, we actually assumed responsibility for the Branciforte Fire District. And again, I'll talk about that here in a little bit. We levy our own funds with private property tax. I've got a slide on that as well. But I just wanted to highlight that we are independent from the city and we cover actually a larger area, about 30,000 people over 30 square miles. These are our 3 fire stations that we currently staff, the 2 on the top, the Glenwood Fire Station, as well as the Urban Lane Fire Station. Those are our 2 staff fire stations. You can see our Urban Lane Station is right in the middle of the city, and that's why we're hoping to move it a little bit more south to give us better coverage. And then the Branciforte Fire Station, we actually assumed on December 9th, as I mentioned. We assumed all of their assets and liabilities. It's really a good story behind regionalization. The Branciforte Fire District had basically 1 full-time career firefighter on at any time of the day, and they would augment their staff with a volunteer. And it really created, at some level, a false sense of security for that community. Sending 1 firefighter to an emergency incident really isn't adequate in this day and age. In fact, our fire department is staffed with a minimum of 3 firefighters on the engine. We're also paramedics. So although Branciforte has to wait a few more minutes for those calls that we have to go on, they are getting a full complement of highly trained firefighters that respond to them. We did assume their 3 career firefighters are part of our organization now. We're training them in the Scotts Valley way. They've been with us for about 8 months now. They're doing great. Over time, we hope that through attrition, we'll bring our numbers back down to where they were before. So basically those costs that we'll get additional taxation from that area of our community, as well as saving money by responding there. There's only about 115 calls within the Branciforte community, and a portion of them are down in the south end towards Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz City actually is picking up those incidents for us. Our Urban Lane Station, I've already talked a little bit about that. This building, as you already may know, it's at the end of its useful life. It's not seismically safe. I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to the Measure S part of it and Measure X part of it. It houses our headquarters building as well as our administration. These are our incident types. This is just a snapshot from last year, 2023. You'll notice that about 80% of our incidents are EMS related. That's pretty common and standard for a modern fire department nowadays. We have an older adult population with our community that relies on our services quite a bit. So we tend to respond to those emergencies. They tend to draw down our services, not draw down, they tend to use the services more, which is why we're here and we want to serve them as best we can. And then those other types of incidents are just some of the other ones that we go on: false alarm, fires, explosions, etc. The snapshot on the other side of the screen, that chart actually is an example of the call volume that we have out of each of our stations. You'll notice that the Urban Lane Station responds to about 2/3 of our incidents, and we hope by moving it more south, it'll balance out those incidents to where the other station will actually be able to respond to some more of those incidents. And then the La Madrona Fire Station will pick up the remaining of those. This is just a snapshot over time regarding the number of incidents from 2020 through 2023. We see about an increase of around 2% per year. This past year, 23, we saw about a 5% bump. That's pretty, again, standard out there for the fire service. That 5% bump was because we assumed the Brant's 40 Fire District response area, and we anticipate those numbers will continue to rise as we go forward. We do have capacity in our system to take on these incidents, so it's not like we're going to be needing to add staff in the future for emergency response. So I mentioned before about taxation. So we are part of, if you look at your tax bill, you'll see the general tax rate of 1%. That 1%, we end up levying about 0.015337% of that 1% that goes to the fire district. I tried to create a picture of what that looks like. So for every $100 of assessed valuation that your property may have, and this is your taxed assessed valuation, we take about 2 cents of that. So this is, again, or the cost you 2 cents of that $100 of assessed valuation that goes to the fire district. So obviously that's exponential as your property value goes up, but that gives you a sense of how, based on your assessed valuation, of what it costs the fire district. Our last increase was in 1996. It was Measure F. It was to maintain levels of service during a downturn, I guess, in the economy. And they've had a few other levies that they weren't successful with, and then obviously our bond measures that we have had in the past. The fire district, I'm really proud to say, when I got here, and we continue to do this, we're really financially conscientious. At the end of the day, you'll see the bottom three of this chart shows actually what our actual numbers were for both expenditures and revenues. Obviously, we're underspending. Our expenditures are below our revenues. The one up at the top is our budget year, so it's a little bit different. This is what we're anticipating getting in revenue, as well as expending in the year. The reason why that shows a little bit more is because this also includes $1 million for the measure for the fire station on La Madrona if Measure S passes. If not, we'll retain those funds in our fund. So when I see this chart, and some of you may ask yourself this as well, if there's additional funds, what happens to those additional funds that are available that's not being spent in the fire on an annual basis in our operational side of it? We have additional items called capital equipment that we're required to purchase as well. So fire trucks, equipment in the fire station, very expensive piece of equipment. And this is kind of a snapshot of what that looks like. One year we may have $1.2 million we need to spend. Another year it may not be anything that we need to spend. So we take those excess funds that we end up collecting, we put it into our capital fund to fund these types of programs. And we spend a lot of time looking at ways to save money. In fact, if you drove by the Urban Lane Fire Station last year, you may have seen Jeff up on scaffolding, putting siding up on the building because we had water running through one of our offices, and he was out there fixing it himself. The firefighters also spend a lot of time working on the apparatus to maintain that, so we don't have to outsource and pay other people to do that. So let me get into some of our incidents. This is a snapshot of where we've been and what we've been doing over the last year. I'll start on the upper corner here and I'll work my way around clockwise. This first picture here is a picture of the firefighters leaving on one of the strike team deployments. We've been on more strike team deployments this year in 2024 than we did the entire year of last year. It was pretty quiet last year, really uncomfortably quiet from what I understand. It was my first year here. But now this year we've shot out of a cannon, I guess, for lack of a better term. We've been on quite a few incidents already this year. The picture in the middle on the top, that was a fire that we had over at 111 Bean Creek. It was a garage fire, pretty small fire, but our fires take a lot of people. It takes between 15 and 17 firefighters for us to respond to a structure fire. That's why we're relying on our mutual aid partners like Santa Cruz and other departments that come and help us. Picture in the upper left, that was a fire up on Glenwood, up in the unincorporated part just north of the fire station. It's actually a really great story that came along with this. This was a house that was quite involved when we arrived, and the neighborhood actually put together a GoFundMe account. But the owner of the property didn't want to accept the donation, and he actually donated it to the fire district. And the board of directors, our finance committee specifically, considered options with those funds. And it wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was a starting place for us to actually create a fund which the board adopted as a policy, to where low-income families can actually apply for funds to help with fire mitigation. So if there's people on fixed incomes, older adults, people that are living on other sources of income, and they have a fire mitigation that they need to risk that they need to remove from their property, we now can help them with that based on our policy that we've adopted. And the bottom two, those are kind of our more tragic events that we went on this year. The bottom picture with the fire, that was the Nelson Road fire. That was a fully involved home. When we got there, it took us a while to find it. It took a while for people to call it in. But unfortunately, we had a fatality fire, and a gentleman was deceased when we arrived on the scene. And then the bottom left here, that's the Mount Herman fatality, double fatality incident that Captain Rutherford was just mentioning earlier. But there is some good news to talk about here. We have some special recognition. Alicia Walton on the left-hand side, the Exchange Club and the firefighters recognized her almost unanimously within the fire district. She was voted to be our firefighter of the year, 25 years with the district, just a remarkable employee, dedicated, really, really difficult shoes to fill. But all but one person nominated her for this role. That one person that didn't nominate her for this role was herself, because she wanted to recognize one of her own staff members. So we're certainly sorry to see Alicia go. She just ended up separating from our district and retiring a couple of weeks ago, but we're certainly happy to see her move on. It was great to recognize her at this event. The middle picture is paramedic engineer Josh Neff being recognized by the San Jose Firefighters Burn Foundation. He was responsible for sponsoring a cornhole competition that was a fundraiser in town, and they donated that money to the San Jose Burn Foundation, and he was recognized at their annual event for that. And on the far left, or your far right over there, that's Battalion Chief Andrew Franco. Earlier this year, he was on a wildland deployment out of the county. And ironically was in kind of the right place at the right time, I would say. And a dozer operator found himself in trouble with some fire that was coming in and was getting burned. And Andrew Franco was responsible, or partially responsible, or part of the saving of this gentleman, and got him into his own car and actually protected him from the incident that was going on. And this is a picture of him being recognized at the incident management team with a number challenge coin, which is a real honor to have from an event like that. So Measure W, Measure W, that was the bond measure that we had run last year. When they say every vote counts, they really mean it. We actually failed it by 6.42%. We missed it by 12 votes, unfortunately. It was a $22.5 million bond that was going to build a new fire station and administration building. So when that failed, our board of directors actually went back to the drawing board and started looking at all of our options and looking at next steps for what to do. They reevaluated the funding options. By now, the Branson 40 Fire District was part of us, as well as the economy has stabilized a little bit. If you recall last year, they were raising interest rates and all those other things to try to stabilize the economy. So it stabilized a little bit better. We discussed some design options to see if there was anything we should change, but we felt that the plan was sound. We're trying to build a building that's going to last many, many years into the future. And then we looked at temporary measures. In fact, Battalion Chief McNair was part of this. And what we found by just trying to take some temporary measures within the fire station at Severn Urbane and move our firefighters into a safer part of the building, it was going to cost over $100,000 before we put our first nail in the building. And putting that much money at a minimum into a building that's at the end of its useful life and unsafe, it didn't make a lot of sense. So the board decided to bring this back to the voters with Measure S. S for station, or S for safety. This is an investment in your community. We're asking for $17 per 100,000. The cost is a little bit less from last year, again, because we reevaluated our financial options. So we're going to have independent oversight over those funds. It's going to cost the average taxpayer about $109 per year if it passes. And we're also using the proceeds from the Urbane Fire Station sale when we relocate the firefighters to that fire station to offset the cost of it. The goal at the end of the day is to build a seismically safe building that's going to last within this community for many years to come. They've been in the building since 1966 or 63, somewhere in the 60s when it was built. It was built by volunteers. I love this story, but there's a shear wall in there that could collapse in an earthquake. The building could collapse on the apparatus and we may not be able to respond. So this has been becoming our #1 priority, and it's to improve our response times by moving it to a better location with our community to help better serve it and really invest in the future of the district by doing this. So we're hoping, we keep our fingers crossed that this will pass later this year. But we also understand that voting is a very personal thing and there's a lot of choices, but I will say that this is an extremely important measure for the fire district to accomplish. So with that, if you have any questions afterwards, I'll be out in the audience. I'll be out in the foyer, as well as Jeff McNeil and Director Hurst. And if you have any questions, you can also email me at info@scottsvalleyfiredistrict or scottsvalleyfire.com, or you can go to our website. There's a bunch of information there. And with that, I'm going to give it off to, I believe, Tanya.
That way. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tanya Krause, the Superintendent for Scotts Valley Unified School District. I have been a superintendent there. This is my 9th year. And so I am going to go over briefly go over a high level of exciting things that are happening in Scotts Valley Unified. So just a couple of cute stories here. Just wanted you to see that this was, some of you probably don't recognize this. Back in the very first school in Scotts Valley was a one-room schoolhouse. Scotts Valley School District formed in 1865. They tried to raise funds like everybody does now, just back then they did the same thing, just needed less money. And it took them until 1872 to actually build the first schoolhouse. Then they had a bond. They actually had bonds back then. Can you believe that? 1925, the first bond to raise $7,000 to expand the schoolhouse because their enrollment was growing. By 1940, the schoolhouse needed to expand. And some of you may actually recognize that street corner of what that looks like. So in 1941, Scotts Valley Middle School was born, as we say. And then in the late 1950s, Vine Hill School opened. In the early 1960s, Brook Knoll School opened. And in 1999, Scotts Valley High School started their first 9th grade class. And so if you do that math, this year is its 25th birthday. So actually that photo right there is all of the school and all of the staff on the football field with an aerial shot of all of us of 25. Pretty cool. So Scotts Valley Middle School. So that was the picture from long ago, and this is the picture of the school now. So we did pass a bond and we're able to complete the modernization of the middle school. You can see the ribbon cutting there was in February of 2019. We are very proud of the improvements that were made. That was a very old school. Some of you might remember the pavilion, and now has a beautiful gymnasium there. And so we are proud, and Scotts Valley is very happy with their school. So that leads us to our other 3 schools. Vine Hill Elementary, as I mentioned, was built in the late 1950s. It was modernized in 1990s, and that tells you how many years later it is still in the same shape. So it is obviously in need of a lot of upgrades. Similar, Brook Knoll Elementary School, as I mentioned, built in the early 1960s, also modernized in the 1990s, and it is a little bit feeling old and also in need of some upgrades. So you may have heard about Measure O. So Measure O, and you've heard from many of us about our measures. It's unfortunate because we don't receive the funding from the state or the federal government that allows us to improve our facilities. So we are forced either to go to our general fund, which we don't have enough money for. The state of California does not give us any funds for state facilities. So we're forced to ask our community to help us out. If Measure O passes, we're going to improve the track at Scotts Valley High School, which is needed, the field and the seating. Unfortunately, the football field is so old and slightly dangerous that we have far too many injuries of our students, both in physical education and in athletics. Neither of our elementary schools have a cafeteria, multi-purpose room, or frankly, any meeting area. Parents don't have a place to gather, nor do students. And we are one of the only school districts in the county that does not have that on our elementary campuses. New playground equipment at Vine Hill and Brook Knoll. You saw that in partnership with the city, we were able to add an additional small play structure at Vine Hill, and now they have timers to take turns on it because it is so popular, because all of the other playground equipment is extremely old, and we've had to remove some at both of our elementary campuses because it was actually a bit unsafe. And so not only does the playground equipment serve our schools, it also serves our communities who utilize our schools on the weekends and after school. We are installing solar panels because just like your PG&E bills have gone up, our PG&E bills have gone up. And so in order not only to be environmentally friendly, we are installing solar panels at all of our schools to hopefully offset all of our high electricity bills. This past summer, we completed air conditioning in all of the classrooms that did not have it because students and staff need to be able to regulate the temperature of their classrooms. Technology is growing at a rapid rate, and our schools have not caught up with the 21st century, and it's time for us to do that. And then basic infrastructure needs, sadly, just like your homes, roofs, plumbing, electrical, driveways, parking lots, all of those significantly need upgrades. And so these are just some of the highlights of what would be spent if we were able to be successful and pass Measure O. This is as an overview of the school district's enrollment. I mentioned last year when I was here, we started transitional kindergarten. That means 4-year-olds are on our campus. They're but they did help improve our enrollment. So you can see over the course of time from 2013 to current year, our drop was COVID. And COVID is when we made our most school districts, unfortunately, lost a lot of students, and we never fully regained our enrollment. So we projected to be at 2104 this year, and they're actually slightly higher than that. So our current enrollment this year is Brooknola is nearly 500, Vine Hill nearly 550, middle school 463, and the high school at 612. So our overall district-wide enrollment is 2120. And we always have to put pictures of cute kids because that's what we do, right? We work with cute kids. Also budgetarily, just to share with you that this is the funding that we receive by grade span from the state of California. However, this is the dollar amount if a student is in school every day. It is unfortunate that the state of California has decided that if a student misses school, even if they are ill, we do not get funded for that. So not only do they lose time in school, we do not receive funding. So when vacations or illnesses or family emergencies, we don't get funded if a child has to miss school. You'll see a supplemental grant and a concentration grant because of the demographics of our district. We receive very little extra funding like some of the other school districts in the county, and only Pajaro Unified and Live Oak School District receive concentration grant funding. So like you saw some of the other budgetary pies, this too is our revenue and expense budget. You can see, like many other agencies, the majority of our budget goes to staff compensation, that is salary and benefits for all of our employees. And the biggest issue that we contend with is that the federal government does not provide us the legislative promise of the 40% federal allocation to serve special education students. We are currently receiving 11% of that 40%, which means that the district has to contribute out of our general fund $3 to $4 million on an annual basis. So do that math, 85% for total compensation, and then you're contributing $3 to $4 million out of your general fund. That leaves very little money left over for any operational costs, anything extra, and definitely not what we would like in terms of being able to not only compensate our staff, but to improve our facilities. So many of you have heard this before, but unfortunately it is still true. Scotts Valley Unified School District is still one of the lowest funded school districts in the state of California. We have worked really hard to lobby legislators, teachers have sent letters. We've gone to Sacramento. I went to Washington, D.C. Roger Snyder, one of the trustees on our school board, works closely and is a part of the California School Boards Association. He has tried everything to get our name on the map, and we have not yet seen any increases in funding for school districts of our size and the demographics of our students. As I mentioned, we are trying to improve energy efficiency efforts to reduce our PG&E costs. And we're always trying to be able to maintain staff, retain staff, and improve their compensation. And you just saw some of the reasons why that's challenging. When you have declining enrollment and lower attendance rates, that obviously affects our general fund, which affects our ability to be able to outgo with our compensation as well as other projects in the district. But we do have some exciting things, and despite some of our financial challenges, we have a lot of things to be proud of. So this is our Scotts Valley Middle School team that went down and received the California Distinguished School Award from Tony Thurmond last year. We have several other schools that have received several accolades over the course of the years. This one was a highlight for us, so I wanted to be able to share that. And we have so many outstanding performers in district performances, athletes, teams, but many of you recognize Don Parrish, who went to Scotts Valley, also was in the Olympics this year. We have a lot of wonderful drama productions at both the high school and the middle school, and it's not only a school event, it's become a community event. And we have a lot of academic accomplishments as well. I could probably give you 50 slides of things that we are really proud of and wonderful things and accomplishments that our students have made over the years. One of that is our test scores. So we are very proud that Scotts Valley tends to score very high. We don't yet have our comparative scores from last year. They should be coming out within the next month. But from 2023, this was Scotts Valley is in purple and the state of California is in green for English language arts, math, and science. And so we far exceed the state average for test scores in the state of California. And nearly every year, Scotts Valley schools outperform in Santa Cruz County, countywide as well. So what are some of our district initiatives this year? We didn't add anything new. We kept the same ones that we had, always having an academic focus. Clearly, that's what schools are about, right? But we did definitely have to recalibrate and redo how we've always done teaching and learning after COVID. We have provided more academic intervention. We continue to try and provide as many counselors as possible. And countywide, there is a focus on math. You've probably read about math scores in the state of California and specifically in Santa Cruz County. So Santa Cruz County Office of Education has sponsored and is paying for and got a grant for all teachers in Santa Cruz County to receive professional development for math. We continue with our multi-tiered systems of support. Tier 1 is providing services to all students. What we call Tier 2 is some students who need more support, and Tier 3 is fewer students who need the most support. And that is where we expend a lot of our resources. We provide additional academic intervention as needed, and as I mentioned, additional counseling. So with that, this year, we added a wellness center up at Scotts Valley High School. It is actually going to be opening in the next month, so we are excited about that. We started this planning in 22-23, and with a grant from the County Office of Education, we did not pay for this. They helped us reconstruct one of the existing classrooms at Scotts Valley High School, and the intent of a wellness center is primarily focused on students' mental health and being able to stay regulated at school so that they can best access their learning. We continue with our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiative. This has become part of the culture of our district. It's in all of our schools every month, all year long. And as some of you may have attended, we recently partnered with the city of Scotts Valley and put on a multicultural fair. So attendance, as I mentioned, attendance is important. It's important to have kids in school, and it's important for their mental health as well. And so we're putting an additional focus on attendance this year. You can see some of the activities that we are increasing. Instead of saying, you know, we're encouraging teachers to say things like, instead of where were you, it's nice to see you're back in class. And so trying to be able to give more positive reinforcement for students to want to be in school. And then here are a number of our programs that we are very proud of. As I mentioned, our strong emphasis in theater arts at both of our middle school and high school, athletics, esports, coding classes, arts and music. We also have band at both middle school and high school. And we have so many wonderful successes really at all of our schools that we are very proud of. And another focus for the year is, as many people have mentioned, there is a lot of change. It's hard to retain your staff as long as we used to be able to. There is an election coming up. We have a 5-member governing board. 3 of those seats are up in the November 2024 election. At our district office level, our CBO retired. We have an interim CBO. We have a new director for business and IT. And we have a new curriculum director who had been in the district. So we did a lot of reshuffling this last year. Our high school principal went to curriculum. Our middle school principal went to the high school. Our middle school assistant principal became the middle school principal. So all stayed in-house, just took on different positions, but each of those people required their additional support in their new positions. And we will be onboarding some new trustees after November. And finally, I would, you know, it takes a community to raise our kids. And so a big shout out to all of our community partners, our community for supporting all of our schools, our educational foundation, who has worked with us for many, many years, all of our parent support groups, And the Falcon Club, the Kiwanis, who help support our music and art program, the Rotary, and also our partnership with the city. We couldn't do it without everyone, so thank you very much.
Well, hello. I am David McNair. I'm the General Manager for the Scotts Valley Water District. Been here for in this role for the last 2 years. I've been in the district for 10, the previous 8 as the operations. I would like to thank the Senior Life Association for sponsoring this event, giving all of us this opportunity to talk with the community. I look forward to hopefully talking with some of you folks after my presentations. I've been dutifully warned that I went on too long last year, so I've truncated my presentation, and hopefully we'll stay in a lot of time. So, let's see. Okay, some of the things I'd like to highlight this particular day are water supply, water demand, capital improvement projects, and bills, budget, and some of the enhanced customer service features that we've been trying to get out there and get people to use. So first up is supply. This is a statewide rainfall impacts, and as you can see, it's been a big difference between 2022 and 2024. In 2022, the entire state was in extreme drought or severe drought. What a difference that 1 year made. And at the same time, a year later, most of the state was out of the drought, with the remainder being a little bit moderate drought and abnormally dry. Year later, 2024, we are, the entire state is essentially out of drought. Why do I talk about statewide stuff? Well, the state, whatever happens across the state impacts every local water agency, including us. Back in 2022, this was the 3rd year of an ongoing drought. And we've got, the governor did an executive order that impacted every water agency. We were all made to reduce water, restrict water by 15%. And it was like a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. Our district did well. This went on for 2 years. We did, I think, 13% the first year reduction, and 8% in the second year. That was lifted. That requirement was lifted after the big wet year in 2023. So the citizens of, we did a lot of social media, a lot of getting the word out, and plus, that ongoing drought made statewide news, and so everybody was keenly aware, and everybody here did their part to save water. Some of the interesting facts about in 2023 was 142% historical statewide average. They got 237% in snowpack. Then last year was a little more normal, 101% across the state, 111% in snowpack. So this is a chart that comes out of our water shortage contingency plan. This is a plan that's been in place for the last 3 years. This is something that the state looks at and approves, and it provides the drivers that we need to assess where we are, and if we need to move into different stages, stage 1, 2, and 3. These are stages that are set up in the water shortage contingency plan. And truthfully, we've never really needed to activate this, with the exception that we had a 15% requirement of us, as we all did. So that pushed us into stage 1 and even stage 2 briefly. What that allows us to do is to a drought surcharge, which we don't like to do, but We did do one in 2022, and it was put aside in February 2020. But that extra money that the drought surcharge brought, it really stabilized our budget, and it was really a godsend for the district. We still got to pay our employees, we still got to pay for chemicals and electricity and everything. But this community did a fantastic job. It really did. So this past year, oops. It's not working. There we go. Local water supply conditions for this year. We were a little lower this year. Last year we had approximately 132% above our average. This year we got to 80%. Now we're kind of an anomaly around Santa Cruz County. The rest of the county exceeded their averages, but there's just something that about the different zones of rain that came through at Scotts Valley. We accumulated about 80%. But because of the year before we had such a great rain year, it allowed us to stay out of any of the stages in our drought contingency plan and continue to operate under normal operating conditions. Because the average for like the 2 years was like 106%, I think. Groundwater levels across the groundwater basin, another thing that's a really key component of what we keep track of, have come up. In some for instance, in the Long Pico the aquifer was on average of about 4.5 feet just between 23 and 24. And then Butano, which is a much deeper basin or aquifer within this basin, came up about 1.5 feet between 23 and 24. So as it says here, total potable water demand in 2023 was 334 million gallons, or a little over 1,000 acre feet. And that is the lowest demand that we've had since the mid 80s. It's really remarkable. And that's due to a certain amount, several factors. Primarily, it's when people have responded, and these things throughout the drought have really hard practices continue. People have just been really, really good and been very efficient with using their water. A lot of these new developments that have come online, they're built efficient. They're using all the latest standards for water efficiency. They all have recycled water for irrigation purposes. So even with these new developments coming online, we've managed to continue to use this water year after year. So here's an interesting chart. It shows historical pumping out of the basin. Our basin, it's a large basin. It starts here in Scotts Valley. It's all the way up to North Bowling Creek. It's like a big shaped pizza pie. So this goes back to 1985, and you can see when I mentioned the little over 1,000 acre feet in 1986. It's pretty comparable all the way over there to the right to what we did last year. Now these big peaks are over 2,000 acre feet. That's 660 million gallons of water that we were using at that time. So from the 80s and into the 90s and the early 2000s, demand on the aquifer really, really grew. Primarily, there was the quarry. We had some quarry that was using, they had 2 wells that produced 350 gallons a piece. And they were using those things for all the processing that they did at the plant. Watkins Johnson was another large employer. They had 24-hour-a-day operation, very water intensive. Matter of fact, for several years, they were the district's largest consumer of water. Bethany College, 500 students. They were our second highest year after year, highest user of water. These are all gone. Quarries closed up. Watkins Johnson is still a large building down there full of different activities going on, but they use virtually no water. And, of course, Bethany College has been converted to 1440, which has, it's not 500 students there for day after day using water. So a lot of those things have really had the impact on the amount of water that we're pumping. A big thing too that was a real game changer, is that we partnered with the city of Scotts Valley. I think Randy was very involved in the building of a tertiary treatment that allowed us to start distributing recycled water. All the parks are on recycled water, the medians of Scotts Valley Drive. A lot of these developments that have gone in use recycled water for their irrigation purposes. And that had a really big impact as well on what we're pumping out of the ground. We're recycling that water, we don't have to pump it out of the ground. And right now it makes up about 10% of our maintenance supply. As you can see, we're really declined in pumping, and our basin responds really well to not being pumped. It's been steadily rising over the last several years. All this pumping that went on 80s, 90s, and into the early 2000s really drew down, especially the Lompico aquifer, which is our real workhorse aquifer that we use. Not only us, but the Valley Water District, Mount Hermit Association uses that. This kind of unbridled amount of water that was being pumped out of the ground was really having a negative impact on the basin as a whole. I think the recycled water project was really fundamental in helping to start drive these things down, as well as the quarry closing and the other activities that I mentioned that are no longer here. And plus the new stuff that comes online. It's efficient, it's water efficient stuff. Our average per capita usage across the basin for residential homes is about 50 gallons per person per day. These newer homes that like the Encore and the Terrace and some of the projects that have gone on, they use about 35 per person per day. So, and that's one of the things, we're talking about these RENA numbers, this additional housing element that Scotts Valley is going to have to come up with. A lot of this, all of this housing will have efficient plumbing, and we're hoping that also to be able to distribute recycled water to of these developers. And one last thing, it was down there when we were in 1986, we had a population of 6,600, and we're now serving over 12,000. So it really is quite a remarkable change. You guys killed the battery for me. Some of the things that we currently offer and are proud of is the intelligent metering and the Water Smart program. Beginning in 2016, we started a meter replacement program. We replaced every single meter in the water in the distribution system. And we added a transducer to that, which provides data. And that data gets reported out once a day. And one of the great things is that we have what's called Water Smart. It's a portal that you can log into, and you can take control of your water use. It's been a wonderful tool for us. And we're always trying to get people to sign up. Right now, we're about 46.5% of our customers have signed up for Water Smart. We're always doing stuff to try to get people to do more. There's going to be kind of a big push in October that we're going to what's called single sign-in. Right now, if you want to pay your bill, you go to our website, you got to log into another site. If you want to go to Water Smart, you got to log into another site. We're creating the single sign-in so you can do all of this in the same place off the website. You know, Water Smart, you can pay your bill and take advantage of Water Smart. One of the things that Water Smart has done has been an incredible reduction of customer side leaks. In 2019, we had 6.7 million gallons that were metered through people's meters and were lost to customer side leaks. And that was kind of an ongoing, that's a pretty average number preceding in 2019. But once we got the Water Smart portal up, and even if you're not signed up to Water Smart, we have an email address for you. You're going to get alerted that within 24 hours that there's a leak on your system. And with that, you'll get an email. So if you get anything from Water Smart and you're not a Water Smart customer, open open it, because it's probably telling you you've got a leak. So with that new technology available and people taking advantage of it, by 2023, we had an 81% decrease over 2019 and reported leaks on the customer side. And that's really remarkable. So, I mean, just the difference between 19 and 23 is about 4.4 million, which is enough water to satisfy 70 single-family residents or 140 high-density multifamily residential homes. And consequently, we ended the leak adjustment program in January of 2023. Water use efficiency. We have a variety of items that we offer rebates for. A big one that's been really had some positive impact is the $2 per square foot for lawn replacement. We did a big project. We didn't do it, but a customer did a big project over on Green Hills. I think they replaced up to almost 20,000 feet of turf. And we have a way of calculating basically how much that is. So just in what we did in 2023 in regards to lawn replacement rebates, we saved about 420,000 gallons per year, which is quite a bit of water. As you're well aware, we have pretty high pressure in a lot of parts, in many parts of our system. So we offer an increased pressure regulator rebate of $100. We have done a pressure, we're doing a pressure management program. We started this year. We had hired a consultant to run a model throughout our system and give us some areas, it's dialed in some zones that we could add pressure regulator stations to reduce pressure. That's something that's really important for us. We have a lot of customers that have had leaks over the years due to high pressure. And it's also hard on, it's like high pressure in your veins, right? It's hard on a water main. So a big priority for us is to move forward with this pressure reduction program. We also have rebates for toilets, pool covers, rain catchment. So if you have anything out there like that needs to be replaced, please don't hesitate to work with us on that. The application period is still open. We still have a lot of money that we'd like to spend helping people replace their lawns or get a new toilet. Infrastructure upgrades. There's a lot of work going on. The first one is Orchard Run, a water treatment plant. Now that's something we completed 2 years ago. It's a $3.5 million capital improvement project. But it's one that I'm very proud of because one of the things that coming here, I worked for San Luis Valley Water District for 10 years. In some of their areas, they have wonderful water that's spring fed. City of Santa Cruz, when they're not using Loch Lomond water, is delicious. But when I came here, one of the first committee meetings I had, one of the directors came in and was disappointed that we didn't have filtered water to drink, which I thought was, we won't drink the water out of the faucet. I wonder what's going on there. But I soon found out we did have, it was hard. It didn't smell particularly good, and it didn't taste that great. So a big project that we did, and this had been going on for some time. I think Donald Lind and maybe Randy were on this taste testing thing back in 2010 that tried different technologies. So we had a panel of experts come out and taste these different technology water samples, and they chose the project that we ended up building, which is it's an activated carbon filter system. And its purpose is for aesthetic qualities. It's to improve the taste, improve the odor. Also, we changed the way we chlorinate the water. It used to be basically a steady feed of chlorine into the system. But now it really responds to changes in flow. It'll slow down if the flows slow down. It'll ramp it up if the flows go up. Those two major changes, I think, really have made our water taste a lot better. I mentioned the orchard, so our wine and beer festival. We have a water booth there every year. And it gets very, very popular in the hot afternoons, where we give away water. And people, I was out there Saturday after this last month, and I had a lot of people question and not believing that this was Scotts Valley water that we were giving them. That was ice cold, and we also had a couple that were flavored, but coming right out of our cold box, it was right from Orchard Water Treatment Plant. We went out there and filled up some tanks, brought it over to the festival. Current projects underway. This is the exciting part for me, anyway, is that we've secured $11 million in grants. I think this is another changer for the district and for our customers. Very much like the recycled water project was, is this intertie. This is an intertie that was first dreamed up in 2013. There were some grants out there available. It was one of 7 interties throughout the whole county that was going to tie basically from Aptos all the way to Old Creek together through interties. Due to some funding shortages at that time, the most expensive portion of that project, which was what we call Intertie 1, and we still call it Intertie 1 with the city of Santa Cruz, that was the first thing that got taxed. But when these grant opportunities arose a couple of years ago, we had a project that was ready to go. It was 30% design, and we applied for a grant, and we got $9 million in total, $7 million for the intertie pipe and the pump station, which I'll show you here quickly after the slide, and then a new production well. We're calling it the Graceway well, and this is going to be off of Scotts Valley Drive. It's where the archery shop used to be. We bought that property about 1.5 years ago, and we're actually going to be getting ready to drill out there this fall for the new well. Another project is the replacement of well 3B. It's on Jacinto. It's now called the Jacinto well. That's a $2 million capital improvement project. We've had mixed luck with that. We had to fire the first contractor for many reasons. But the current group that we hired and have been working with have been great, and they have successfully drilled the well. Now it's ready to be outfitted. So that's pretty exciting to get that well. That well's been offline now for almost 2 years. Another thing that we got a grant for was the Scotts Valley Center LED retrofit project. Back in 2016, we did a chunk of the transit parking lot over there, but we only had enough money to do the northern third of the parking lot. We had designed the entire lot, but there just wasn't enough grant money, so we went ahead and have been capturing that groundwater coming off that upper third, the north third of the lot there, and it gets biotreated by a bioswale, and it gets channeled into an infiltration gallery that's down at the very bottom level. But all of that infrastructure was sized so we could someday do the rest of the lot. Well, there's some grant money that came available, and early last year we applied and we got a 1.5 million. This first grant was 100%. This grant down here for the LIDs retrofit phase 2 project is 75%. So out of the 2 million, we got to spend 500,000, but the $1.5 million covers the rest. So and we hope that, and what this does is it captures all that rainwater instead of going out into the creeks and eventually the ocean. We're capturing all this and putting it back in the ground. It's an enormous infiltration gallery that we built out there in 2016, and I'm pretty excited about finishing this project and seeing how much we capture in future winters. Backwards.
Dave, we're kind of at our limit.
Okay. I'm at it as well. Go ahead. Let's see. Look to the end, per projects. This was right here is a part of the project. The intertie will be focused on La Madrona. It'll start down in Santa Cruz at Sims Road, where the Kite Hill tanks are. It's going to go way up La Madrona to where the fire station wants to build where the fire department wants to build a fire station. It will be nestled into the corner of that project, the new pump station. And what this will allow is any wet year that we have, the city of Santa Cruz always has more water than they can use. For instance, if we had this intertie that was up and running in 2023, that really wet winter, we could have turned all of our wells off and been supplied entirely for about 5-6 months from Santa Cruz. So that really has a major impact on the aquifer. So let's see. We just went through the third year of a 5-year rate increase, 5% a year. Revenue reserves were very strong last year. So instead of going for the full 5, we actually asked the board to approve a 3%, which they did happily. Development fees were down last year. Not a lot of projects going on. Of course, our money comes from monthly basic service charges and consumption charges. We do get some non-operating revenue. We get a slice of property taxes. And let's see, the bills are currently average monthly bill in 2004 was $61, and it's now $100. So if you account for inflation, it really hasn't gone up all that much. All right, sorry to rush through and take too much time, but thank you.
Okay. Richard, thank you for bringing up the lights. Richard Dwyer back there is the man in charge of this theater. And, you know, for those of you who have been here previously, you may not notice it, but there are lots of improvements that have been made since you were here. The theater is getting better and better all the time. And a lot of it has to do with Richard. We're going to have an opportunity now to ask questions, and Ray Gorski, a member of the board of directors for the theater, has a microphone there. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and Ray will give you a microphone. We have another microphone over here too. Thank you. Oh, okay.
Neither am
Well,
I.
he does get big money he could share with you.
Very bad joke, yes. I think that, is this mic on? No? Yes?
We're good. It's on. Who's got questions?
So this is a revenue question. I know Salesforce was here with the hotel occupancy. So with the fiscal cliff coming, I'm just wondering if we had 50% more hotel stays, would that make a difference, or is hotel stays really not significant? I just asked because we talk about events. I'm just wondering if that would make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. Is this mic on?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that question. Actually, 1440 has recovered really strongly since Salesforce isn't there. They have a lot of other events, and so their TOT revenue is held pretty strong. TOT is an important revenue source, but it's a pretty small revenue source for the city. And so, yeah, always more hotel stays not only help the city's TOT, but the people who stay in those hotels shop at our restaurants, they go to our stores, and so the whole economic development piece of that is important. Santa Cruz County as a whole has recovered pretty strongly from the tourism perspective, even compared to other places in California. The Central Coast has done quite well. So I think we're doing about as well as we could hope on that front.
Other questions? Raise your hand.
Got one back over here.
John D's over there, right in front of you.
John D. Gums, Scotts Valley Times, and my question has to do with home insurance. I was here for the presentation, and really Nothing has improved for me as a homeowner. I'm paying twice as much, which means I have less money to give to all of you. All of you have great worthy causes. I wish I had that money, but I already sent it to State Farm. So the question is, since the Placer County Board of Supervisors voted to send a letter to the governor saying that the insurance situation is an emergency here in our county, is that something that our city council might do to get the attention of our governor or the legislature? Because it seems like possibly they could do something.
That's a very good question. And, you know, God and insurance companies move in mysterious ways. You kind of have to go to Florida to kind of get a perspective on the hold that insurance companies have. You know, Florida has hurricanes, we have earthquakes and now fires. And, you know, insurance companies are bottom line generated. They work on profit. There are no subsidies given their way. So when you have these large, massive regional occurrences, it could be an earthquake, it could be a fire, it could be, you know, there's flood insurance through the state. They pay massive amounts and they're responsible, I guess, to their stakeholders, if you will. And they run a for-profit companies. And they always have the kind of ace in their in the hole is that, okay, if you want to regulate us, but you could also regulate us out of the state. And that has happened before very closely in Florida because of the hurricanes and so forth. So there's a lot of tension between regulators, the state, consumers, and insurance companies. And, you know, we just sent three, you know, pretty poignant letters to this state, to the governor's office for the interests of our city. I think we'd probably be more than happy to send that kind of response and concern to the governor and the legislature to see what we can do. But as you probably know, a lot has been done with respect to trying to rein in those prices. I think everybody here is feeling that. Car insurance has even gone up, so I don't know what the relationship is there. But to your point, John, you know, having to come up, and I feel it too. I think I went from $1,600 to $2,800 a year. That's a lot, you know, just out of the blue to have to pay that kind of money on just one aspect of your insurance. It's not medical insurance, it's not car insurance, it's not any of the other things. It's just this fire insurance is like that specter that is haunting us. And I'm hopeful that at some point we go through a stage where we're not having these kinds of massive fires and that kind of, not to be funny, lowers the temperature as far as rates go. And I think that's what we're looking at. A lot like drought years. You know, drought years cause tension for water districts and fires cause tension for insurance companies.
Other questions?
Yeah, hi, my name is Al, and I live up on Twin Pines. And I would like to know if there is any reserves for preventative maintenance on our streets, our residential streets. And if there is, I think we can use some help on Twin Pines Drive, especially at the bottom, the entrance. The roots are starting to pop up. There's cracks all over. Even if it's just a matter of sealing it like you did with Scotts Valley Drive, we wouldn't mind the veins, because down the road, if you don't do that, you're going to lose the road. So that's it.
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple of years ago, we had all of the roads in Scotts Valley assessed. We did what's called a pavement management index, so we could see the condition of all of our roads. And then with the funding we have available to fix roads, we prioritized, and we've had to focus more on the collectors in the major roads and try to keep those from degrading more. And so it's been harder to prioritize residential. But we do have a way for you to reach out to our public works team if you have a specific concern on a specific road. You can either get there through the homepage of our website under the report a concern button, or you can just send an email to pwmate, MAINT, and that will get your question on the queue of our staff, and they can go and check it out and meet with you and connect with you about what we can do. Oh, pwmate@scottsvalley.gov. Sorry. PW as in Public Works. Or you can just get there from the homepage of our website, report a concern, and you can get there.
Thank you. My question is directed towards our wonderful police department. I live on over near Glenwood Drive and Scotts Valley Drive. And over the last few years, there has been an RV population that has occupied the public streets. They live there, and they're often between 8 to 10 RVs behind Scotts Valley Market area. And I was confused whether or not it was legal to live in your RV on our public streets.
So as far as the RV parking goes, we do have a muni code that doesn't allow them to park in a certain location for more than 72 hours. And so our officers are pretty proactive on going out and issuing starting the citation process for that. I will say it's unfortunate because they know that if they move the vehicle within 72 hours, then the process starts all over again. That's just the way the law is written. So it's kind of I won't say a game, but it's something where they know that they can kind of push the envelope until the vehicle is cited, and then if it's there for more than 72 hours, it can be towed. As far as living in the vehicle, we're running into some other issues in terms of just actual the Muni Code violations that we can enforce with them being in their vehicle, because technically that is their home. So we have other obstacles that we wrestle with that. So to answer your question, we do go out because we do get a number of complaints regarding the RVs. And unfortunately, once one or two show up, the next thing you know, now they kind of multiply because they realize, oh, this is someplace where I think I can park. And then we get half a dozen or a dozen there. That's not the only area. And then, like I said, we go out and we actively enforce that area. And it typically gets rid of a few of them. But again, if they move the vehicle, it kind of starts it all over again. So it is something that's on our radar. It is something that we go out and we do our best to try to mitigate that from at least multiplying and becoming more of a problem.
Other questions? Raise your hand. This is your opportunity.
We have one right down here in front.
We'll go to you first.
Oh, okay. Scotts Valley has been the birthplace of a lot of high-tech companies, Netflix, Borland, I mean, huge number of them. But now there's a lot of empty buildings. There's a lot of evacuation of some of these companies. Is there any effort or recruitment or something to try to make Scotts Valley a startup capital? We're so close to Silicon Valley. Have we made any effort to try to bring high tech back into Scotts Valley more?
So the city staffing at this point, we have no staff dedicated to economic development activities. In larger cities, you have whole departments who are dedicated to those sorts of things. We do work closely with the Chamber of Commerce around how we can help support our local businesses. And there are several other organizations regionally that help sort of in that tech incubator space, like Santa Cruz Works and some other related. So the city, at this point, we don't have a direct role in that, but we do kind of keep track of what businesses are here. We do some outreach, and I think that you're right, that we are positioned in this great sweet spot between sort of the creativity of Santa Cruz and the high tech of Silicon Valley. And we've had some great startups, and we've had businesses who want to move here because it's safer than maybe where they were located in Santa Cruz. So, for example, Poly moved here from Santa Cruz last year. Ambient Photonics just opened their both manufacturing facility and offices in the old Enterprise building. And so last I heard, the Enterprise building is almost full. There's a lot of startups happening there, and a lot of that's happening organically through the tech industry, which is great.
Yeah, and you also are close to UCSC, which is a premier university, and maybe engagement with UCSC could also help that, perhaps.
We got a question down front.
I live on Bluebonnet Lane, and I was wondering what's going to be going on in the Metro Center as far as the water. Are they doing excavating to put things in, or what all is it going to be involved in that?
Yes, it's a phased project. It's going to consist of, there will be some excavation going on there. That's why we opened up some temporary parking right directly across the street from the Metro to help offset the parking in the parking lot there. It's mostly, there'll be some piping put in, a few tree wells, and then the lower part of the lot there's a large piece of equipment called a hydropneumatic separator. It's going in the ground. It'll be right there buried next to the infiltration gallery site. But this project shouldn't take more than 2 months, 2.5 months to complete.
Any other questions? Something over there? No? Well, we have.
Oh, we got one on the back.
I have a question about the schools. I was wondering if the schools have considered at all banning cell phones at the high school and middle school, and if what you think about that. Thank you.
So we have talked about that for a long time. And this year, we actually have much stronger enforcement at the high school. That's been a super fun experience. So at our elementary schools, they don't usually have phones, although they do sometimes come with smartwatches. We have rules that we have an office staff for a reason. If a parent needs to contact their child, they can call the office. We will be happy to go get their child or give them a message. Same with middle school. Middle school students are not allowed to have cell phones at all. If they have them on their person and they take them out during school, they go to the office and they can pick them up after school. Same rule applies. A parent needs to get a hold of their child, be happy to take a message to their student. At the high school, it's not quite as easy, but this year we did require that every classroom has a cell phone holder. So when a student walks into class, they put their cell phone in the holder. They're not allowed to have it during class time. They are able to have them during breaks and lunch, and before and after school. Enforcement has gone better than I expected, but I think that when the governor, if he comes down with a much stricter policy, then we will have a reason that we can say we have to implement, but we will still have some policing to do because students really love their cell phones.
Any other questions? Seeing none. First, I want to thank everybody for being here. I particularly appreciate our presenters today. Thank you so much for being here. I see we have some people in the audience like Donna Lynn, City Council member, Kathy Simonovich down here, City Clerk, has been keeping people on time. Thank you. As it says in the sign up here, when convenient, please remember the Scotts Valley Senior Life Association at donation time. We're only funded by the community. There is no government money involved. And so outside there's a donation box and there's also an envelope in case you would like to do something later. And with that busy work out of the way, let's adjourn to the lobby. There are beverages and snacks available, and please talk with all these presenters and on a one-to-one basis and ask all your questions. Thank you again for being here.